The man merely updated the game he was playing and found himself transported into the online game's world. Even more absurdly, there were hundreds of thousands of other players who had also been transported. While other transported players were struggling for survival, Chinese players actually created NPCs with automated gold farming programs. To provide hope for players within the game, the major guilds of Shiro and Akiba cities established a roundtable conference to maintain urban development and lead players in conquering the game's dungeons. Furthermore, they collaborated with the NPCs of the game world to explore its depths. This is the content of the second season. Those who haven't watched the first season can access it through the pop-up video link for a better viewing experience. Several months have passed since the adventurers were trapped in the game world Elder Tale. The once chaotic city of Akiba has grown increasingly prosperous under the governance of the Round Table. After helping the native inhabitants of the game world deal with the attacks by goblin activities, the players have become even closer to the NPCs known as the People of the Land. Even the NPC Princess Rhaenysia has stayed in Akiba as an ambassador for exchange. Although the economy appears to be improving on the surface, the Round Table, as the autonomous governing body of Akiba, is burdened with a massive financial strain. This is because after Shiro purchased the guild hall, to prevent others from following his example and buying ownership of public facilities to use as leverage, the Round Table spent all its budget to buy all the important facilities in Akiba. However, these purchases are not one-time expenses. A monthly management fee of 10 million must be paid for these facilities. This expenditure is a significant weakness, and if discovered by the Western faction controlled by Nureha, it would undoubtedly cause more trouble. To address the financial issues of the Round Table, with the help of the NPC Sage, Shiro found the Kuni clan, responsible for the gold circulation in this world, and attempted to use real-world financing methods to raise funds from them. Although their leader, Kinjo, holds great respect for Shiro, he still refused. The banks in this world only serve to store gold for adventurers and have no tradition of lending money to others, a rule passed down from their ancestors that cannot be changed. Failing to negotiate effectively with Kinjo, Shiro had no choice but to threaten the source of their funds, stating that if the Kune clan could not provide the gold, he would lead the adventurers to take it themselves. Kinjo remained unfazed, declaring that to obtain the money, they would first have to conquer a 24-player large-scale team dungeon. Realizing that further negotiation was futile, Shiro decided to consult with his companions. He planned to leave the city, and to prevent spies from gathering intelligence, he could not disclose the purpose of the mission. Even the members accompanying him could not be chosen from Akiba. Akatsuki was assigned to protect Rhaenysia, while Shiro, along with Naotsugu and the Sage, headed to the northern city to recruit more people. Naotsugu and the Sage searched the streets for a long time before finally encountering a level 92 cute priestess named Tetora. She called herself the Star of the Priest World, and immediately clung to Naotsugu. Impressed by her skills, Naotsugu decided to recruit her as a teammate. Unbeknownst to him, this girl was actually a cross-dresser, just like Akatsuki, except she was a male player's female character. It turned out that as the game continued to influence the transported players, adventurers with different genders gradually had their voices change, and the game map's size also became closer to real-world dimensions. The effects of the transportation event were still ongoing. Meanwhile, Shiro negotiated with the leader of the Silver Sword Fighters Guild, asking him to join in conquering a large-scale team dungeon. The area was filled with level 90+ monsters, and only experienced adventurers could pioneer it, which perfectly aligned with the guild's purpose. The Silver Sword leader immediately agreed. At that moment, Demiquoise, whom Shiro had defeated before showed up, grabbed Shiro by the collar to settle their previous score, only to be scolded by the Silver Sword leader, who wouldn't tolerate threats to his allies. To make matters worse, Tetora walked in at that moment, claiming Demiquoise had reformed and even married an NPC as his wife, creating an extremely awkward atmosphere.
Hey.
Under the leadership of the Silver Sword Guild leader, a 24-member raiding team was formed, divided into 4 squads of 6 players each. While clearing dungeon minions, they familiarized themselves with each other's skills and combat styles. The first group consisted mainly of tanks, responsible for drawing enemy aggro, while the second group mopped up stragglers to create output space for the third group's damage dealers. The fourth group handled battlefield surveillance. Even if members died, they would respawn at the dungeon entrance. During this process, Demiquas ignored teamwork and charged into the minion horde to vent his frustration. Just as he was in danger, he suddenly gained a beneficial buff. It turned out Shiro had been managing the overall situation to prevent a total team wipe. When facing the raid boss, the standard strategy involved tanks pulling aggro in the front, while priests in the rear applied damage reduction skills. Unexpectedly, the boss unleashed an ultimate move, launching a massive area of effect attack that ignored aggro and knocked out 10 players in one blow. Yet the boss only lost 10% HP. As the boss grew stronger with decreasing HP, 2 such attacks wiped the team, forcing them to retreat to the dungeon entrance. Large-scale raid dungeons were this brutal, requiring repeated trial and error through failures and wipes to memorize the boss's ultimate timing. Fortunately, Shiro calculated the boss's cooldown, timing the ultimate's release perfectly for priests to remove debuffs from teammates, then capitalizing on the skill's downtime to deal massive damage. They finally defeated the first boss, though it was the easiest one. Monsters grew progressively harder, and equipment wore down constantly, making repairs and resource resupply major headaches. Thanks to Shiro's strategic planning, the team managed to continue raiding for over 20 more days. Demiquas recognized this too. Despite his resentment toward Shiro, he genuinely admired him. He realized that even if he were a better fighter, he couldn't secure the team's success. Only a strategist like Shiro, who commanded the big picture and adapted on the fly, could be the backbone of the entire team. While Shiro's team was raiding the dungeon, Akiba faced a new crisis. The once peaceful streets had been targeted by a mysterious serial killer. Akatsuki and her friends remained oblivious, busy enjoying Christmas. Although Akiba's large-scale team activities were in full swing, Akatsuki only felt loneliness. She always believed Shiro had abandoned her. After all, Shiro was a top-tier dungeon raider, specializing in group play, while her assassin class was only good for PvP duels. The huge gap in their skills made her realize that the only way to stay by Shiro's side was to become stronger herself. First, she wanted new equipment, and the ice daggers in the weapon shop caught her eye. However, she didn't have enough gold, so upgrading her gear was out of the question. She had to improve her skills instead. Then Akatsuki learned from Nyanta that, under the influence of the delicious cooking law, some players had developed a new special ability called Overskill, the personal unique skill. But to learn Overskill, one had to participate in large-scale team activities. This put Akatsuki in a difficult spot because she suffered from social anxiety and was too afraid to ask others for help. She could only secretly observe the activities every evening. To make matters worse, the ice daggers she wanted to buy had been taken by someone else. Her future seemed bleak indeed. That night, a girl was heading home with groceries when she unexpectedly encountered the mysterious killer. The ice daggers Akatsuki wanted had been bought by him. With a single slash, he instantly killed the girl. The next day, rumors of the killer spread throughout Akiba. The situation was highly unusual because the game had a security system called Royal Guard, whose members wore super armor capable of teleporting. Any illegal PvP in town would immediately trigger their intervention. Yet this killer remained completely unconstrained, freely murdering people at night. The incident grew increasingly serious, causing immense headaches for guild leaders. Upon returning, Sojiro immediately organized his entire guild to hunt down the killer. It turned out the girl killed by the killer was a member of Sojiro's guild. Soon after, Sojiro received news that the killer had reappeared. As he prepared to depart, Kinjo from the Kuni clan suddenly visited Rainisia. He had already uncovered the killer's true identity, one of the city's security guards. In the game, every item had background descriptions. After the transportation event, these descriptions had mutated, influencing game characters based on their lore. The ice dagger's background stated that their wielder would be possessed by an evil spirit, causing the guard who bought them to go berserk and abuse his Royal Guard system privileges to slaughter adventurers. The invincible Royal Guard system was managed by the Kuni clan, making Kinjo primarily responsible for this incident. Mishandling this NPC killer would worsen the relationship between adventurers and locals again, greatly troubling Rainisia, the communication ambassador. She urgently wanted to consult Krusty, but Krusty had also been accidentally teleported to an unknown area due to his subordinate's weapon mutations. Just as Rhaenyra felt isolated and helpless, Akatsuki, who had been secretly protecting her, learned of everything and joined the hunt for the killer. The players suffered greatly at this moment. The Royal Guard's equipment was beyond what ordinary players could handle. Just in time, Sojiro arrived and activated his unique skill. With the ability to predict the future, he barely managed to block the killer's attack. At the critical moment, Akatsuki joined the battle, unleashing a combo that briefly suppressed the killer. However, the killer, relying on his character stats, countered with a single slash that overwhelmed Akatsuki. The team had no choice but to retreat first, with the two of them buying time. During this fierce battle, Sojiro revealed the true secret to awakening overskill to Akatsuki. It was continuous self-reflection in training, which would eventually lead to the realization of one's unique skill. Yet even after Sojiro was defeated, Akatsuki still failed to awaken overskill. With one final strike, she too fell victim to the killer's blade. Meanwhile, Shiro's team encountered a new boss, the Black Armor. This guy had extremely high defense and could deal massive damage with his weapon, making melee attacks completely ineffective. The raiding party had to test the boss's ultimate cooldown again and time their healing to survive each wave of damage, allowing damage dealers to strike when the opportunity arose. Unexpectedly, the boss unleashed his ultimate without warning, instantly scattering the players' formation. The Silver Sword Guildmaster quickly reorganized the team, barely maintaining the fight. To everyone's shock, the boss shattered his black armor and entered Phase 2, with the armor fragments turning into minions. The frontline warriors discovered that killing these minions restored the boss's HP, returning him to his initial form. This mechanic was incredibly frustrating. Just as everyone was struggling, the worst happened. The boss room's door suddenly opened, revealing a blue giant boss and a red dragon boss. Under the combined attacks of the three bosses, the raiding party was instantly wiped out. Shiro experienced his first death since crossing over. He then recalled memories from his childhood. His parents, too busy with work to care for him, had made Shiro gradually withdrawn and mature. He had almost no interaction with peers and was used to keeping secrets to himself, shouldering everything alone. This was what led to the team's defeat. Had he been more open, the outcome might have been different. By the time Shiro regained his senses, his soul had already reached the moon. It turned out that all players would ascend to the moon in soul form before reviving. This was the official preset test server, the lunar server located in the Sea of Tranquility. At the same time, the fallen Akatsuki also saw memories from her real life. She had always lacked confidence in her relationships, instinctively avoiding communication with others. Ultimately, her attempts to escape had failed. Almost simultaneously, the two who had fallen met on the moon. They stood by the shore for a moment, watching as fragments of their memories flowed into the sea. The sea before them was made entirely of memory fragments, proving that death truly caused amnesia. By the tranquil shore, the two finally had a heart-to-heart conversation. Neither of them had given their full effort to do what they could. They were both essentially running away. But failure didn't mean giving up. They could always start over again. After acknowledging their immaturity, their consciousnesses were teleported back to their respective revival points. When Akatsuki awoke in the shrine, she found her companions gathered around her, warmly inquiring about her condition. For the first time, she was able to communicate openly with them, asking for their help in mastering the technique to obtain overskill. She honestly admitted that she could never defeat the killer alone, only by relying on everyone's strength could they win. Rhaenyra then shared the killer's intel with the group. They discussed their battle strategy and deduced that the killer grew stronger the more players were around. They decided to block off the streets at night and organize a large-scale team raid, fighting in groups of 2 or 3, using a kiting tactic to wear him down. As dusk fell, the patrol teams began their rounds. Soon, Akatsuki encountered the killer, launching a poison slash that inflicted a continuous HP-draining debuff. When the killer delivered a full-power strike, she blocked it with a priest's shield. The next squad then attacked, allowing Akatsuki to rest. Through repeated relay battles, the killer found himself in a tough spot. He activated the Royal Guard system's teleportation ability to quickly eliminate Akatsuki. Fortunately, her teammates summoned a stone golem in time to take the hit, giving Akatsuki a chance to recover her HP. After training hard with everyone and fighting this desperate battle, Akatsuki finally awakened her overskill. She instantly suppressed the killer with her unique skill, Shadow Clone Technique. However, just as she landed the hit, the killer froze her dagger and reduced her to near death in one strike. In this dire moment, the blacksmith threw out his best blade, allowing Akatsuki to finish off the demon wielding the ice sword. The weapon had only one passive effect. It could damage the opponent's weapon durability. After this prolonged battle, the killer's HP was finally depleted. The final phase began in the open square, where the killer directly entered a berserk state. Meanwhile, Rhaenyra made up her mind and asked Kinjo to deactivate the city's security system. With both their permissions, the town's protective shield instantly shut down. A mage 50 meters away chanted a powerful spell, instantly freezing the killer in an ice throne. Akatsuki then severed the ice blade. Through their combined efforts, they finally eliminated the killer, who had threatened the city's safety. To celebrate the victory, the girls held a lively pajama party. Akatsuki finally understood Shiro's desire to protect the city. Now, her only wish was to share her thoughts with Shiro. At this moment, Shiro sent a private message. He had regained his determination to raid the team dungeon again, but the process of rallying was extremely difficult. Facing such a devastating wipe, the members of the Silver Sword Guild were filled with despair. They couldn't even defeat a single black armor, and now 2 unknown bosses had appeared. They didn't even know the attack patterns or skills of the 3 bosses. Players couldn't help but complain that the game's designers were insane, so everyone gave up. The players of the Silver Sword Guild were just a group of otaku obsessed with games. Their only source of pride was the joy of successfully conquering high-difficulty dungeons. If they couldn't even tackle future high-difficulty dungeons, they would be completely worthless. The guildmaster felt frustrated. No kind words could solve this hopeless situation. He could only speak from the heart. He himself was just an otaki looked down upon by others, escaping reality and being unproductive, good for nothing but playing games. No matter how good the equipment or how impressive the achievements, they were just a string of data on the server. But that was exactly why he refused to compromise. Only games could bring him happiness. The thrill of successfully conquering a high-difficulty dungeon with companions was truly exhilarating. These experiences might be worthless in the eyes of successful people, but to MMORPG players, they were treasures more precious than gold. The highest configuration in games was friendship. In this world far removed from reality, there were players who loved games the most. Driven by this passion, no matter how many times they lost, the brothers could always start over again. These words inspired everyone in the raiding party. They were determined to conquer this seemingly impossible dungeon. Seeing the renewed determination of the team, Shiro also decided to communicate honestly with his teammates. He revealed the true purpose of their mission and stated that even in this hopeless dungeon, he had a 15% chance of success. The party once again arrived at the boss's door. This time, their coordination was more precise. Under Shiro's methodical commands, the entire team emerged from the first phase of the black armor with almost no injuries. When the boss's armor fell off, releasing minions and entering the second phase, the boss would stop moving. At this moment, they could leave the white armor behind and directly deal with the 2 hidden bosses. The squad then split up and passed through 2 hidden boss doors, reaching the locations of the 2 bosses. Shiro's team first had Naotsugu draw the aggro of the red dragon, allowing the teammates on the shore to focus their attacks. They then applied a buff to Demikwas and unleashed a brutal wave of damage. Just as the red dragon was about to unleash its fire attack, Demikwas actively used a skill to share the damage the boss inflicted on the teammates. Due to the high HP and defense of the martial artist, the pressure on the priest was instantly relieved. At this moment, the other blue giant boss also charged over, only to be intercepted by the elven tank. While taunting the boss, the tank immediately activated an invincible skill, forcing the battle into a 2-front fight. Since the 2 bosses were far enough apart, their ultimate attacks wouldn't overlap, preventing a potential team wipe. This kind of battle placed immense pressure on the priests, requiring 2 to protect a single tank while the remaining priests moved back and forth between the 2 bosses to provide support. Shiro then directly activated his ultimate ability, reducing Totora's skill cooldown by 20% and redistributing his MP to the teammates. The entire battlefield's configuration was under Shiro's control. As long as they followed the plan methodically, defeating the 2 bosses was only a matter of time. He had already foreseen the future of victory. At this moment, a swarm of minions fell from above the battlefield, instantly disrupting the team's rhythm. Shiro was puzzled. No one was attacking the armor boss. Without taking damage, the boss couldn't summon minions. Shiro deduced that the black armor was deliberately damaging itself to summon the minions, then having the minions attack it in a snowballing effect, constantly spawning more. Now, they had to use a kiting tactic to lure the minions away from the battlefield, or they would be wiped out immediately. Demiquus activated, his skill broke through the encirclement and dragged Shiro into chaotic movement. Shiro initially thought this was retaliation, but soon realized it was Demiquus's strategy. He then became a mobile artillery platform, eliminating the pursuing minions while running. Demiquus maneuvered Shiro through the battlefield with such agility that even the boss couldn't hit them. Shiro had no choice but to hand command over to the Silver Sword Guildmaster, while he and Demiquus led the minions away. Demiquus dragged Shiro forward desperately and dropped him at a fork in the road. Despite his dislike for Demiquus's earlier actions, Shiro still called his name earnestly. Though Demiquus grumbled about it, he pushed Shiro toward the hidden door, luring the minions away alone. Behind that door lay Shiro's destination, the Kuni clan's Golden Vortex, where Kinjo had been waiting for a long time. This is where all the gold in the Japanese server is born and returns. The gold is distributed to various monsters and dungeons, meaning the Kunie clan provides gold to the monsters. This secret must never be revealed to the NPCs, or the Kuni clan will become the target of everyone's anger. That's why they have always adhered to secrecy and never interfered in other matters. After Shiro swore to keep the secret, Kinjo said he could take as much gold as he wanted, but he mustn't spend it recklessly. The power of this money could even destroy the world. Hearing this, Shiro revealed his true purpose, stating that he wasn't taking the money for himself. Instead, he wanted to buy all the public facilities and land in the Japanese server, then transfer ownership back to the Japanese server through a contract. As long as the contract was destroyed, the transfer would become permanent. This would prevent enemies from maliciously occupying important areas and solve the Round Table's financial problems. Now that the Round Table's power was established, there was no need to use public facilities as leverage. Shiro also wanted the Kuni clan to finance the purchase of all unclaimed areas in the Japanese server, then return them to the server. Meanwhile, the Silver Sword Guild systematically defeated 3 bosses, uncovering a mountain of gold treasure. The Guildmaster planted the Silver Sword's flag at the site and erected a monument engraved with the names of all the team members, ensuring their names would be forever remembered. The expedition was a double celebration, and everyone gathered to celebrate. Before parting, the Silver Sword Guildmaster finally asked Shiro to add him as a friend. The sage chose to stay in the northern city to study the urban portal issue. Demiquus went back and bragged about saving Shiro, while Tetora followed Shiro and officially joined his guild, Log Horizon. However, she planned to keep her true identity as a man a secret from Naotsugu for now. Shiro and the others returned to Akiba. They saw Tetora holding Naotsugu's hand, which made Marielle unhappy. It seemed another love triangle was brewing. Akatsuki then approached Shiro, and the two simultaneously recalled the scene of watching the moonlit ocean together, both feeling embarrassed. However, after going through this ordeal, Shiro could confirm that everyone had grown. Not long after their return, Akiba celebrated its annual Valentine's Day. During this time, NPCs would sell Kononia fruits. Eating these fruits and using them in cooking would reveal the eater's true love. Upon hearing this, Sarara quickly excused herself, not realizing Nayanta had seen through everything. Akatsuki and Minori naturally felt pressured, both wanting to use this opportunity to find out who Shiro truly liked. Minori directly bought a box of Kononia fruits and brought them to Nayanta, asking him to teach her how to cook. When she looked back, Akatsuki had also gathered a full bag of ingredients. The two rivals had just crossed paths. Tetora then suggested they cook a dish together for Shiro, so they could simultaneously learn his feelings. Meanwhile, Marielle had already finished cooking and made Naotsugu eat it. However, before Naotsugu could say he liked underwear, Akatsuki teleported over and knocked him out with a kick. Thanks to the efforts of the two girls, Shiro ate a special double love cake. The effect activated the next second. Just as the two girls were hesitating whether to ask, Tuya's interruption ruined their investigation plan. Sarara failed to buy any fruit or cook anything, so she could only pick a thorny flower for Nayanta. However, Nayanta had seen through everything and said he would come to spend time with her that night. Sarara was delighted. It seemed this pair might really work out. As for the unluckiest one, it was probably Nureha from the west. Ever since Shiro dumped her, she had been staying at home. Her maid Indicus even scolded her. "Stop thinking about that stinky man. They're the ones meant to rule the entire Japanese server." It seemed Nureha wasn't the real boss after all. She was just under Indicus's control. Though she appeared submissive, secretly, she always hoped Shiro would rescue her. It turned out Indicus was also a member of Shiro's former guild, Debauchery Tea Party. She had once been the maid of the former guild leader. After the leader quit the game and abandoned her, she completely turned dark. To expand the war, she even developed an iron train capable of transporting large numbers of troops. Her ambition was truly immense. Unbeknownst to her, the former guild leader, Konami, had returned to the game and was now fighting in the Chinese server. She and her 3 teammates were battling 2,000 monsters in China when a white horse suddenly appeared, clearing a path for them. Upon inquiry, they discovered the white horse was KR, the illusionist of Debauchery Tea Party. After the time travel incident, he had been possessing phantom beasts, gathering intelligence everywhere. After learning that Konami planned to cross Asia and return to the Japanese server to uncover the truth, KR also decided to join them on their adventure. The Chinese server was in grave danger, as villagers in remote areas had begun to go mad and were about to bite the maid Coppelia to death. It was only when Leonardo, dressed in his Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles outfit, intervened that they were finally subdued. To find out why the villagers had gone mad, Konami and her team launched an investigation. Along the way, they encountered the Chinese player Chun Lu, who told them about their previous attempt to defeat a 96-player army raid. They had faced an army of over 1,000 monsters, but were ultimately wiped out. Worse still, a werewolf army was now advancing toward a Chinese NPC village. Faced with this dire situation, Konami was oddly excited about taking them on, much to Leonardo's shock. With only 4 people to stop the army, it was simply suicide. But Konami insisted they could ambush the boss. As long as the werewolf boss dies, the monsters will scatter. Leonardo couldn't understand why they would go to such lengths for NPCs. Elias, the ancient elf, was the first to agree, as he was born to protect NPCs. Coppelia also agreed, revealing that she wasn't human either. She was an automatic gold farming script developed by a Chinese game studio. She wanted to contribute to her homeland's NPCs, although Leonardo did not want to participate in this battle. Now that the situation had come to this, backing out would be too embarrassing. Despite being a real-life otaku, he also harbored the will to become a hero. This fighting spirit moved the white horse KR, who directly activated his ultimate skill to summon his true self to the Chinese server. He then summoned Garnet Dragon to join the battle, just in time to encounter the enemy boss mid-air. The moment the hooded monster attacked, Leonardo slashed with his sword, sending the 2 bosses on the Black Dragon crashing to the ground. He left KR and Garnet Dragon to deal with the Black Dragon. Leonardo faced the Spider Girl, while Konami and others took on the hooded Thorn monster. Leonardo used the parallel plan to link his attacks and instantly killed the Spider Girl with his Ninja Turtle sword techniques. On Konami's side, Elias drew the monster's aggro, but unexpectedly, the Thorn monster also had a mental attack that paralyzed Elias. This forced Konami to use her overskill ultimate to instantly kill the Thorn monster. However, it seemed she would still need some time to reach the Japanese server. During this period, Akiba finally enjoyed a peaceful time. Seizing the opportunity, Shiro decided to have the new players collect materials for magic bags to prepare for higher levels later. This would also serve as a training experience for them. Early the next morning, the rookie group packed their belongings and then went to a vehicle shop to pick a good one for the journey. Tuya thought the armored vehicle would be perfect, but the price was far beyond what they, as rookies, could afford. Finally, they chose a decent quality carriage and set off. For them, this marked the true beginning of their independent journey. Minori and the others headed west toward Minami City, but they had barely traveled halfway when the horses suddenly broke free and ran away. It turned out they had exceeded the summoning time for mounts, causing them to strike. Now, they could only travel a short distance each day, taking several extra days to reach the next lodging spot. Along the way, they earned travel money by performing songs, eventually arriving in a monster-infested area. There, they encountered two NPCs being chased by ghouls. The rookie team immediately intervened, swiftly defeating several ghouls. Just as they finished off the last one, they were surrounded by a group of ghost-type monsters. The ghosts were immune to physical attacks and dealt devastating damage. In this critical moment, a mysterious figure summoned a holy angel, who obliterated all the ghosts with divine light. Minori asked the stranger's name. She introduced herself as Ro 2, a summoner and a vampire. Because she was a vampire, she could only hide in the carriage during the day. Minori thought Ro 2 looked exactly like Shiro, but Ro 2 just smiled without saying anything. In truth, she was another persona of Shiro, one that had inexplicably gained self-awareness and traveled from the moon to the Japanese server. Since her destination was also Minami City, she decided to travel with Minori and the others for a while. Meanwhile, Nureha sneaked out and disguised herself as an NPC. She hid inside a damaged carriage to pretend to bump into Minori and the others, seizing the opportunity to travel with them to Minami City. After some conversation, Nureha saw through that they had been sent out by Shiro for training, so she once again hatched a wicked plan. At that moment, the night adventurer team of Minami City happened to pass by. Astonishingly, they had built a mobile shrine and carried it with them, allowing instant resurrection in battle. However, the side effect of repeated deaths made the entire team look like zombies. Nureha's constant fake smile made Tuya feel she was hypocritical, forcing a smile despite not liking to laugh. Just as the atmosphere turned awkward, the sky suddenly darkened. Minori looked up to see countless wyverns approaching. Tuya quickly moved to stand by his sister. To avoid dragging NPCs into the fight, they decided to lure the monsters outside the city for battle. Surprisingly, the NPCs remained unusually calm, fully believing the night adventurer team would turn the tide. The night's fighting scene stunned Tuya and the others. These adventurers weren't just fearless, they seemed to be begging for death, acting like complete maniacs. Just then, Ro 2 finally arrived. Far from being frightened, she found the scene amusing because the knights would contribute their memories and emotions upon death, and the faster they died, the more they contributed. This mindset was something Tuya could not accept. At the same time, Mizufa, an NPC under the Nureha Guild, took advantage of the chaos. She even used a forbidden technique, operating a steel train to transform NPCs' consciousness into undead spirits and sent them to attack the knights. This way, the NPCs could gain experience and grow stronger. Mizufa mocked the knights, saying creatures who couldn't die didn't deserve to talk about war. Under the attacks from both groups of monsters, the knights were stuck in a cycle of being killed and resurrecting. Tuya and Sarara could no longer stand by and stepped in to help. The knight leader finally lost his patience, deciding to drag the wyverns into the NPC town for battle, determined to win at any cost. Seeing this, Tuya immediately confronted him, but the leader ignored him. To everyone's surprise, Tuya blocked his path, insisting this world was just as real as any other and should be cherished, not treating NPCs as mere sacrifices. The leader, however, was already tired of this other world. He had just gotten married in the real world when he was dragged to this place, now living with severe depression. For him, death was the only way to glimpse memories of reality. Tuya fought back with all his might, revealing that in the real world, he had been in a car accident that left him unable to walk. He relied on his sister Minori for care every day, forcing a smile through it all. To him, the real world was worse than death, while the crossing had given him a new life. Because Tuya knew how painful a negative existence could be, he refused to let the knights live like zombies. The two clashed violently over their opposing views, while Ro 2 watched with great interest. This made Minori suspicious of her identity, so she directly asked who she really was. But Ro 2 dismissed the question, saying it didn't matter, she just wanted to be friends with them. Ro 2 had been hiding everything. Minori stopped questioning her. She introduced herself as Shiro's student and believed Ro 2 was their older sister. This remark deeply moved Ro 2, who then summoned a blue Pegasus to carry Minori into battle. Meanwhile, Nureha was also touched by Tuya's words. She felt responsible for the destruction of the NPC city due to her negligence. She decided to drop the act, ordering her subordinates to help eliminate the monsters and terminate the current strategic operation. At the same time, Nayanta arrived at the scene, riding a griffin onto the steel train. With an enchanted dual-wielding technique, he swiftly defeated a group of ghosts. Seeing this, Mizufa chose to engage personally. Despite being only level 68, she dominated Nayanta in close combat, forcing Nayanta to unleash his ultimate move. At the decisive moment, the move was blocked by a swordsman Kazuhiko, the powerhouse of Debauchery Tea Party. He had just received Nureha's order to halt the operation immediately. Hearing this, Mizufa had no choice but to retreat. Nayanta still wanted to understand Kazuhiko's intentions, but he refused to explain further. After defeating Nayanta, he slashed through the train, severing it. Nayanta did not pursue him, sensing there must be more to the story. Finally, Row 2 reached the main battlefield, revealing her trump card, the Sword Maiden, one of the princesses of the nation. As her fingers lightly plucked the strings, the monster army was instantly obliterated. Despite annihilating the monsters, the NPC town lay in ruins. Tuya failed to convince the knights, a result no one had wanted. Now, Row 2 and Nureha had to part ways with them. Before parting ways, Row 2 handed Minori a letter to deliver to Shiro. However, Shiro was facing new troubles at that moment. The Honesty Guild, which had joined the Round Table, had taken in a large number of adventurers who struggled to adapt to society after crossing over. These individuals did nothing every day, creating a huge wealth gap compared to those who had adapted, leading to rejection and disdain from mainstream adventurers. The leader of the Honesty Guild then demanded fair distribution, proposing that the Round Table enforce policies to forcibly take wealth from the rich and give it to the poor, while also freely sharing newly invented recipes. The idea was that those who had prospered first would help the less fortunate. However, this proposal would make the entire Akiba bear the cost of these problems, which angered other guilds. They had worked hard on their research, and now they were expected to hand over their achievements for free. Why should they reward those who did nothing? The two sides argued endlessly in the meeting, reaching no conclusion. This put immense pressure on Shiro. If the Round Table made a unilateral decision, it would cause widespread dissatisfaction and could even collapse Akiba. After returning, Shiro learned about the situation in Minami City from Nayanta. He realized that more and more adventurers were failing to integrate into the other world and were seeking revenge on society. If these individuals allied with extremist NPCs, a war might break out in the Japanese server. Adding to the trouble, a new kind of monster, one capable of human-like disguise, had secretly infiltrated Akiba. This man seemed like nothing more than a creepy flirt, but in reality, he was a monster who could mentally manipulate girls. He belonged to the same type of boss Konami had encountered before. All were new, mysterious monsters that appeared after the crossing event. Unfortunately, this guy wasn't very smart. He dared to abduct girls in broad daylight and was caught red-handed, only to be knocked out with a single punch. Yet, he refused to change his ways, using his powers to control the girl's mind. This angered Sojiro, who couldn't stand seeing his fans bullied right in front of him. To everyone's surprise, the creature wasn't picky. It wanted Sojiro himself as its bride, which naturally upset his fans. Even after transforming into a monster, it was beaten to death by the players. This humanoid monster was later revealed at the Round Table meeting. After the Wyvern battle, Minori's group obtained magic backpacks and prepared to return to Akiba. Nayanta happened to meet them along the way and joined their journey back. Once in Akiba, everyone held a grand feast to reward the newbies. Shiro opened Row 2's letter and learned shocking information, feeling immense pressure. Akatsuki seemed to sense his distress and came to talk to him late at night. With Naotsugu and Totoro present, Shiro shared his recent troubles. To resolve social conflicts, the best solution was to send those who wanted to return home. He then presented Row 2's letter to everyone. Row 2 belongs to the Traveler race, an artificial consciousness created by an extraterrestrial civilization. Currently, she inhabits another character's body belonging to Shiro. Her purpose in coming to this foreign world is to collect Empathium, a resource essential for her race's survival. Empathium consists of the player's memories and emotions. The humanoid monsters are called Genius and are also part of the Traveler race, but they use monster bodies, while Row 2 uses a player character's body. Details about the crossing event remain unclear, as even she does not fully understand them. However, players may attempt to contact the Traveler organization on the moon, where there might be a way to return home. All the clues now connect. To uncover the truth and resolve these troubles, exploring the moon's server becomes necessary. Meanwhile, Rhaenesia's brother arrived in Akiba and trained with the Black Swordsman Order under the Round Table, preparing to become the next heir. On the day of the heir's announcement, NPC nobles from Minami City sent assassins to poison him. Fortunately, Black Swordsman Isaac intervened in time, preventing the tragedy. The assassins, realizing their plan had failed, immediately dropped a gas grenade and fled. It appears the NPC factions of Minami City have set their sights on Akiba's NPC territories. These events made Shiro realize that the balance of NPC society has been disrupted by the player's influence. At that very moment, the sage unexpectedly showed up, revealing that his investigation into the portal had yielded results. The portal wasn't broken. It was merely suffering from insufficient magical energy supply, making it highly repairable in the future. He also discovered that the portal was somehow connected to the moon, meaning they had to find a way to communicate with the moon. The only communication tower in the Japanese server was located in Shibuya. Just then, Minori and Tuya rushed over, warning that the genius had launched another invasion. The moon had turned blood red, and swarms of moth-like monsters descended upon them. It turned out an old-looking genius had taken over Shibuya, using the communication tower to summon lunar creatures for a full-scale attack on Akiba. The moth's scales had a hypnotic effect, instantly knocking out unsuspecting NPCs and adventurers, while the creatures drained their MP. Facing this dire situation, the Round Table immediately convened an emergency meeting and sent Sojiro to investigate Shibuya. However, upon arrival, Sojiro found the communication tower had become a monster's nest, resembling a large-scale multiplayer dungeon. The worst part? It was the only structure in the Japanese server capable of contacting the moon. If destroyed, the lunar communication plan would be ruined. Shiro, under immense pressure, organized a counterattack. But with most of the team unconscious, the selected members were of uneven skill. Lacking intel and plagued by hesitation, Shiro's on-the-spot command faltered. Even worse than Minori's, teammates openly criticized his poor leadership. Inside the building, the complex environment worsened Shiro's command. First, he got lost in a pile of spider webs, then chose a dangerous area to rest, leading the team into a trap. Overwhelmed by monsters, the squad was completely wiped out. Faced with this disastrous turn, Shiro had no choice but to cast a teleportation spell to make a hasty retreat. The first raid attempt completely failed. The battle loss made the atmosphere extremely awkward. Henrietta noticed Shiro's hesitation and slapped him to wake him up. Minori also told Shiro not to take all the blame on himself. After everyone's encouragement, Shiro finally realized his mistake and began rethinking the strategy. He boldly declared he would take on both the communication tower and the dungeon simultaneously. The raid resumed. Since these moths fed on magic, Shiro first used magic redistribution to evenly redistribute everyone's MP. He then gathered all the monsters and pulled them forward, allowing the damage dealers to unleash their full power. Under the massive area of effect attacks, the swarm of moths was completely wiped out. Next came the melee rabbit monsters. Through Akatsuki and Sojiro's fierce fighting, they carved out a path for everyone. The group finally reached the boss. Although the boss wasn't high level, the players were nearly all at low health. Shiro tried to communicate with the boss, but the boss immediately cast a massive summoning spell, bringing in an endless wave of moths. Just as the entire Japanese server was about to face a major crisis, Shiro used thorn magic to interrupt the boss's spell at the last moment. The boss then entered Phase 2. Shiro directed Sojiro to block the boss's attacks, while Totoro timed her ultimate heal perfectly for the team. They gradually wore down the boss's health, forcing it into Phase 3. When the boss charged up an energy beam attack, the frontline tank surprisingly blocked it. Under Shiro's command, each teammate took turns attacking in an orderly fashion, finally suppressing the boss. In the end, with Shiro's double thorn magic, the boss was defeated. The unconscious victims also woke up. On the other side, the sage had also filled the receiving device with incantations, successfully activating the communication device. The device transmitted a voice, but the owner was not from the moon. It was Konami from the Chinese server. Shiro was stunned, never expecting that the online friend he used to chat and farm materials with had already been a mother for over 3 years. This remark left Shiro feeling uneasy, and he vowed to find a way to send Konami back. Surprisingly, Konami didn't seem to care. Instead, she wanted to bring her child to this other world to play. as the scenery here was so beautiful. This gave Shiro a new idea. If the two worlds could be connected for free travel, that would be ideal. The two agreed to meet again when this mission was accomplished. Konami also mentioned that Krusty, who had been teleported away by her subordinate's weapon, was right beside her. So that guy had crossed over to the Chinese server. Just as Shiro wanted to continue the conversation, the communication device's lifespan ran out, ending the conversation. Meanwhile, Plant Hyaden, led by Nureha, had a new plan. Since the Genius incident was so serious, they decided to seek peace negotiations with the Round Table first. On another front, Row 2 had solo cleared the Ruins Island dungeon, and even found a rocket on the island, suggesting a way to reach the moon. Shiro and his companions finally saw a glimmer of hope